ॐ वाङ् मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्मयेधि वेदस्य आणीस्तः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासि अनेनाधीतेनाहोरात्रानुसन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्भक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु भक्तारमवतु भक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ओम्। Om. May my speech be accorded with the mind. May my mind be accorded with the speech. O self-effulgent one Brahman, reveal thyself to me. May you both, speech and mind, be the carriers of the highest truth through me. May you not all that I have heard depart from me. May I be able to join day and night through this study. I shall utter what is verbally true. I shall utter what is mentally true. May that Brahman protect me. May that Brahman protect the teacher. May that protect me. May that protect the teacher. Om. Peace, peace. Peace be unto you all. Good morning. We are very happy that after long 2 years, this morning we can breathe a little bit to the fresh air, because the severe pandemic, I think, by the grace of the Holy Trio, we are leaving behind. However, we are very happy that Swami Ishadhyanananda, Assistant Minister of the Vedanta Society of Sacramento, kindly agreed to come here and accepted our invitation to deliver a very pertinent talk from the point of view of practical life as well as spiritual life. And he came, Swami Ishadhyanananda. So quite a few years he has been rendering his responsibility in Vedanta Society of Sacramento. And by the time he became a pretty popular speaker in different centers of the USA, he was invited and successfully delivered some brilliant talks. So without much ado, I would request Swami Ishadhyanananda to deliver his talk on a very pertinent topic: 3 spiritual lessons from the pandemic. During the pandemic, we had some kind of spiritual and practical attitude, but what have we learned from this pandemic? So he is going to highlight on those particular topics. I will request Ishadhyanananda to take the mic.
Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good morning and namaskar. Happy to see you face to face, in person, after quite some time. Some of you I see almost every week over Zoom. Some of you attend the Friday class I give. So I came here for a week, and the week passed by very quickly. It appears I came just yesterday and had a nice time. And I am really grateful to Swami Prasannatmanandaji for inviting me to spend a week here. So as you know, all of us know that pandemic is not over yet. Not yet. It is kind of stop and go. We are thinking it is over, then some new variant is again puzzling us whether it is really over or not. But during these 2 years of pandemic, we learned many things. It was really something new all of us learned. Last year, Pew Research Center conducted a poll involving 3,700 Americans. They asked them 2 questions. First question was there anything to learn from the pandemic? Was there any lesson behind the pandemic that we learned? And second question was it sent by God? 86% of the respondents said they believe that the pandemic made us learn some new lessons. There is something to learn from the pandemic. And 36% of the respondents said that, yes, probably it was God's plan that we learned something from the pandemic. So from the responses, there are some themes that emerged. People believed that the pandemic had taught them some practical lesson, like the importance of wearing mask, keeping social distancing, and then some personal lessons like how important it is to spend time with family and friends, how much it means, because many could not spend time with their family and friends because they could not travel, and there are relatives, friends at the other part of the country they could not meet. And then some say that there are some societal lessons to learn from. For example, the need of universal health care, equitability, these things. I believe that as spiritual aspirants, we very often need to deeply look at our experiences to learn or gain insights from them. One of our Swamis, a very illumined Swami, tells that spiritual life is nothing but a series of small awakenings. Of course, the goal of spiritual life is an illumination, which is transformative in its nature. But spiritual life also means a series of small awakenings or small insights. Another Swami, he says that very often we need to look back to look forward. we need to look back to look forward. In Sanskrit, there is a term for this. It is called Simha Avalokanam. As a lion moves forward, it sometimes pauses and look behind to see what path it has traveled and how far to go. So I believe that sincere spiritual seekers very often need to look at the experiences to gain insights. And I believe that the pandemic taught us 3 lessons which has spiritual implications. It is my own understanding what the pandemic taught us. It is not exhaustive, and you can also have your own take on that. And after the talk, I will be happy to hear from you what spiritual lesson you learned from the pandemic. You are welcome to share. So according to me, the pandemic taught us 3 lessons. I give it an acronym, SLV. SLV. S is for structure. Structure means how we organize our time, how we organize our day around different activities. Another way of telling that is our daily schedule, our daily routine. Structure. Why structure is important? One Yale University professor of psychology who gives a course, very popular course on happiness. He conducted a survey during the pandemic to find out what kept people going during the pandemic. Not only that, who were happy even in the midst of pandemic. Was there anything common? Or were there common factors that can be found among these people whom pandemic could not upset? So he found that there were 5 things common among those people. One is structure. Number 2, community. Physical exercise, good sleep, good eating habits, and finally, those who had a purpose in life. Those who had a purpose and meaning in life. Look at that findings. All of them are related to spiritual life. All of them have relation to spiritual life. Because spiritual life consists of taking care of all our 3 healths: physical health, mental health, spiritual health. Physical health with workout, good exercise, good food habits, and proper adequate sleep. Mental health with good mental food like spiritual community or association of good holy books. And finally, our spiritual health, which we do by practicing meditation, chanting God's name, singing bhajans, or reading spiritual books. So my point is structure. My lesson was need of structure in our life. Our life, we have a structure in our life, sometimes most of which is determined by external factors. Like I have to go to my work. I have some social commitments that give structure to our life. For example, I have to go to my office at 10 a.m. daily. Okay? I have to pick my kids from the school at, say, 2 p.m. daily. These events, external events, impose a structure in our life. But what happened during the pandemic, much of these external supports were taken off. So many people found that there is no structure in life. It's kind of vacuum. Many people, especially those who are single, they found they have enough time, but they don't know what to do with that time. What to do with that time? Time was random. Life became random, and that is an existential angst. When we have time, but we don't know what to do with that. Much of the things we were busy with earlier, now no longer we can do those things, but then what to do with our time? So that's why structure is so important in our life. In spiritual context, the structure means having a solid daily routine. That is, some good spiritual habits. So important. In fact, one thing common among all the successful spiritual aspirants is this one. They have a very well-regulated daily routine. They do some spiritual practices at regular hours. Even illumined people, if we look at the life of Holy Trio, direct disciples, and afterwards all the spiritual stalwarts, we shall find one thing common in all of them. They had a daily schedule, daily spiritual routine. In fact, some of our Swamis who were known for their spiritual attainment, one can match their clock seeing their activities. They were so particular about their things. What happens if we have a structure in our life? What particularly I have seen is they have enough time. They have time for everything. I had the privilege of working with 2 general secretaries of the Ramakrishna Order, who you can say as equivalent to CEO of a big organization. So they had a lot of work to do, responsibilities to do, but throughout their daily routine, they structured their life in such a way they had time for everything. Meditation, chanting, reading, writing, working, meeting people, whatnot. So that is the one lesson I learned from them, that if we structure our life, if we can make a good habit, what happens is some of the things that we must have to do, we do at certain times. At the same time, we have some time, which are flexible time, which we can utilize for other things, like meeting people, or say taking a walk, or today I am feeling like I want to read something more, I can read. So having structure does not mean that bound by time. It means a combination of particular work schedule, at the same time some flexible time in our hand. Swami Ranganathanandaji, who was a very popular speaker and very busy person, he used to say that I have time for everything, even for chat. Even for chat, I have time for that. So that is the value of structure. So a spiritual aspirant should not skip a few things. It's core spiritual practices, whether it is meditation or mantra japa or sadhya or whatever one has chosen or whatever one has been given, one should do them at appointed hours. At appointed hours. Then what happens is, during crises like pandemic, when we see that many things are out of our control, we find control in these areas. We find a sense of control in these spiritual practices. Okay. Now, our day, our time can be structured in different ways. Say, we can make a routine of watching television for a particular time and engaging in other things, but as spiritual aspirant, what does it mean to have structure? Right? Structure means that some spiritual practices which I shall do every day, no matter what. Then it becomes a habit. And those moments are moments of comfort of moments of peace and moments of strength for us. How to create structure in our life? First is, it is formed bit by bit, slowly. And the important thing to remember is, when we are starting some practice, the goal should be very small. Okay. Start with the minimum, practice the easiest. Okay. So suppose I want to form the habit of daily meditation. Then instead of aiming for 1 hour daily, aim for 15 minutes daily. But don't skip it. No matter what, don't skip it. After some time we shall find that when we have been able to meditate 15 minutes daily, we are encouraged to extend that, maybe 15 to 20 minutes. What happens is, sometimes with enthusiasm we start a habit, say meditation, that from tomorrow I shall meditate, say 45 minutes a day. And a few days I do, then I see I am skipping. I could not make it. And what happens, after some time, I find that I have altogether skipped the habit of meditation. Then after a few months, we feel like, oh no, I have to start it. That does not help. That does not help. What counts in spiritual life, especially practices like meditation, is regularity in practice. Regularity. So, and not to skip it any day, because our mind is like, we know, right? Holy Mother Sri Sarada Devi, even Holy Mother says that one day early morning she felt like not meditating today. Today I am not feeling good enough. Next day also her mind said, okay, let me skip it today too. Holy Mother understood the trick of the mind, that once we start skipping, we keep on skipping. So the point is, even a little bit of practice, don't skip it. That is how we can form good habits. With good habits, we have a daily structure in our life, and this daily structure in our life helps us to organize our time or to engage in spiritual activities daily, no matter what the external circumstances are. So this is one thing, structure, need of a daily routine for a spiritual aspirant. Second is, as I said, SLV. Second is L. L means less is more. Less is more. During the pandemic, we learned that there are many things we did not have access to. Many things became scarce. They are out of circulation. We could not find them. But we also found that we can live happily even without them things. So this made many people to realize that we can live happily, satisfactorily, without many things. We think otherwise that we must have. We must have. In fact, a few days ago, PBS NewsHour showed a story that many Americans retired early during the pandemic. Why? They realized that they can manage with much less money than they were used to. The pandemic taught them that they can manage with much less money than they were used to. And that made them realize that life is so fragile. What we would like to do our life with. So they then thought that let us spend our time in meaningful activities. Meaningful activities, spending time with family or grandkids or any hobby, any calling they had but earlier they could not pursue. They realized this is the time to do, because they could manage with less amount of money. In Vedanta or any spiritual practices or any faith tradition, you will find the stress on this spiritual quality called Shama and Dhamma. That is, Dhamma means control of your sense organs. That is, not to be engaged with too many things, unnecessary things. Not to be engaged with too many extrovert activities. Why? Because if I don't engage with too many unnecessary and extrovert activities, we shall have more quality time. More time, more quality time for spiritual practices. Meaningful things, purposeful things. So less of what? Less of expenditure, less of debt, less of waste, less of worry, and more of mental peace, more of time, quality time and peace. So less of that. And one thing we should remember, in Mahabharata there is a saying that there is enough in this world to meet the need of each. But if the wealth of entire world is brought into a village, it won't be enough to meet the wants. It won't be enough to meet the wants of people. So a spiritual aspirant should think about it. Need versus want. That need can be met. Wants are really never satisfying. Never satisfying. Now I am reading a book, very wonderful book called Strength to Strength by Arthur C. Brooks, one great psychologist and professor of Harvard Business School. Strength to Strength, and the subtitle is Finding Meaning and Happiness in the Second Half of Your Life. Second half of your life. So there he goes on to say, not hypothetically but with research and studies, that during the midlife or the mid of our career, we find that many things which used to give us satisfaction no more gives us satisfaction. For example, money or power or fame, those things are no more satisfying. But we still keep on running because we have not taught ourselves any other way to get satisfaction from. And he says that after some time, our capabilities, our cognitive abilities, or fluid intelligence, what he says, fluid intelligence, that declines. Then we need to prioritize other things. We need to
find satisfaction and joy and happiness in other things, we need a paradigm shift. But such a thing called hedonic treadmill that we keep on running, probably we think that the bigger house, a better car will probably give me more happiness. So we can't stop running. At the same time, we don't have that capacity to, we have professional decline. So he thinks at that time, and very interestingly, the last chapter of his book is called Prepare for Your Vanaprastha. Prepare for your Vanaprastha ashrama. So then our engagement and our time, effort should be less on wealth or fame or pleasure. Then we should be ready to find or be prepare ourselves to engage in more purposeful activities. And for spiritual aspirant, these are spiritual activities. I was busy making my career, making a living, but now I have time. So less of those things, less of those engagements, and more on things that really matter. And for a spiritual aspirant, what matters? Spiritual practices matter. Okay, so the lesson was, the less we are engaged with unnecessary activities, unnecessary extrovert activities, the more quality time we shall have. And that quality time we can spend in meaningful and spiritual activities. Less is more. Just recently I visited the house of a devotee couple, and I was so happy to see that their house was so minimalistic. Bare minimum things. What they care for is the shrine. They have a dedicated shrine, and that's what their focus is. So it is so encouraging to see. So simplify our life. We can simplify our life. We can do away with many things. That is the lesson pandemic gave us. Another point, interestingly, the material things, objects, in Sanskrit they are called Vishaya. And how Vishaya is defined? Vishanniti iti Vishaya. Vishanniti means those who are taxing. So to acquire, we have to spend energy, time, money. To maintain, we have to spend time, energy, right? Our examples are, things which you don't need, go to closet first, then to the garage, then to the public storage, right? So we have to spend time and energy even to maintain them. And finally, we are afraid to lose them. So that is why it is Vishaya. At every stage of their existence, they are painful to us. That is why in Yoga Sutras, in Vedanta, in Bhakti Yoga, everywhere we find that cut down your engagement and pursue for material things. And pandemic taught us that we can do. We can live with much less and give our time, energy, everything to spiritual practices, or even any other meaningful activities which gives us ultimate satisfaction. That was SL, now V. V stands for what? V stands for Viveka. The power of discernment. The students of Vedanta know very well that two wealth, spiritual treasure, Viveka and Vairagya. Vairagya means withdrawing the mind from unnecessary thing. even what I just spoke about, less of material engagement with material things. And viveka means power of discernment. In Vedantic paradigm, this viveka means to nitya anitya vastu viveka, the capacity to discern which is permanent, what is temporary. Okay, so in more understandable term, it means the ability to look deep, think deeply, seeing through the appearances with analytical mind. That is viveka. And spiritual aspirant who has exercised viveka with regard to what is temporary, what is permanent, they can also exercise their viveka or the capacity to discern in day-to-day life too. And we found that during the pandemic, viveka becomes such an important thing. Why? Because there was two things, pandemic, and there was also one, infodemic. Infodemic. Lot of information going on, coming all the time. News channels, social media, somewhere misinformation, somewhere disinformation. Misinformation means, you share something which is not right and you just share it innocently. And disinformation means it was shared with propaganda, which had some motive, wrong motive. And interestingly, our Stanford University has done a great job in tackling in misinformation. They have a department of misinformation, how it spreads. So they found that during the pandemic there were 12 individuals in America who were responsible for this disinformation campaign. And they, through this disinformation, earned a lot of money. So I think viveka is needed, viveka, that don't jump to a conclusion too quickly. As soon as we see something, we don't have to jump to a conclusion. It requires suspending our judgment. That is also a function of viveka. So they said, I'll be happy to share with you how to spot misinformation, disinformation. So they say that any news, if it infuriates you, it stokes anger in you, be careful. Be careful. So those were probably part of a propaganda. And so go for news channels which are balanced, trusted. For example, PBS NewsHour. So I see PBS NewsHour daily, so I feel the difference. Even when they are showing disturbing news, like say war in the Ukraine, after watching the news, you don't feel distressed. Okay, you are getting all the information. They are not withholding any information, but you are seeing from both perspectives. All the perspectives you are seeing, it does not increase your blood pressure. So I think we need to exercise even more now when there is continuous stream of information. So what to believe, what not to believe. Which source to believe, which source we need not to believe. This we need to exercise as spiritual experience, because ultimately we have only one mind. It's not that with one mind we will deal with the world and we shall sit for meditation, we shall switch to another mind. It is the same mind. Sri Ramakrishna said nicely, one who can measure sugar can measure salt too. That is, one whose mind has viveka, in discerning what is real, what is unreal, what is permanent, what is temporary, that mind has also the capacity to discern what to see, what not to, what to believe, what not to. That is one function of viveka. Second function of viveka is what is essential, what is not essential. Okay, so many things we think that these are essential for our life, essential for our existence. Pandemic taught us they are not. They are not. The example that I gave, many found that many things are not essential in their life. They are non-essential. We can do away with them. Rather, choose what are the essentials, what really makes life worth living, what gives permanent satisfaction, long-term satisfaction in our life, happiness in our life, and spend your time, energy in them. That is the second function of viveka. And the pandemic made us realize this thing, to take a pause, stop, and think deeply what are the essentials and what are the non-essentials. So I will summarize my talk. Pandemic taught us many lessons, and as spiritual aspirant, we also need to think that what lesson we could learn from the pandemic. According to me, pandemic taught us three things. SLV. S for need of structure in our life, that is structuring our day in a meaningful way, which has got place for all the spiritual practices we believe we need to do. We should not compromise them. And that means forming good habits. Forming good habits are like, at first, while forming habits, it is just walking your bike. When you don't know how to ride the bike, you are now walking the bike. And once you have learned how to ride the bike will take you with minimum of your energy spent. So it takes time and endeavor, consistency to build spiritual habits. But once we have formed spiritual habit, those habits carry us. Habits carry us. And the value of those are felt most at the time of crisis, like pandemic. And they should be formed when we are not in a crisis. When things are going fine, that is the time to form the good habits. Once the crisis has hit us, then it is not time to form the habit. That is the time to reap the benefit of the good habits. So that is need of good habit, which is formed bit by bit, consistently practicing it, not skipping it, doing it daily. Need for structure, that gives structure in our life. Second is less is more. Less is more. So many things are not essential in our life, and if we can get away with them, then we shall have more time, peace of mind in engaging in spiritual activities, or even activities which gives us permanent satisfaction. That is, less is more. Finally, V for viveka, the power to see through things, or thinking deeply, exercise the power of discernment. What is essential, what is non-essential, and also what to believe, what not to believe. Taking some time before jumping into conclusion. So I believe these are the three lessons of pandemic. These are the three lessons pandemic taught us, which will help us in our spiritual life, not only in our spiritual life, but also our empirical life. Because ultimately, as I said, we have only one mind. The same mind, if consumes unending stream of information and news sometimes which are mixed with misinformation or disinformation, the same mind will be sitting for meditation in the evening. So these are the 3 lessons, and I'll be happy to hear from you what you think pandemic taught us, or any ideas you'd like to share with me. After I do the closing chant, Maharaj, or you will do closing chant?
Would you like to take some questions?
Okay. After that you shall do the...
It looks like many people have enough for their needs, but that's not enough for the greed.
Mm-hmm.
So what, does it make sense, that when the mind gets into greed mode, that's the time, this, whatever the suffering and this discomfort and all these things happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Greed is unquenchable. Yes, go ahead, Sally.
Yes, one of the biggest lessons for me in the pandemic was my own reaction to threat and to security, and then the thinking about what is threatened and who do you go to when you feel under threat. And
Oh.
So that was a big lesson. I was surprised by how strong my fear reaction was.
That's a good something to keep in mind. Any other?
We tend to get latched onto our so-called sense of continuity. Things are continuous, going on, reliable, steady progress, and so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, that sense is
Jeopardized.
and then it puts a perspective on it. We read about this in books and all that, but to experience it firsthand has a tremendous lesson, which was part of your
Yes.
mentioning.
Yeah.
Shanabhangul, as we say.
All right, Maharaj, closing chant.
Thank you very much, Swami Ishadhyanananda ji Maharaj, for your beautiful practical talk. It is practical in our day-to-day life, as well as it is very important in our spiritual life too. And thank you for your interaction. And we have other opportunities also to talk with the Swamis. Let me conclude with this chanting. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkham Apnuat, Sarvastarotu Durgani, Sarvo Bhadrani Pashyatu, Sarva Sadbuddhimapnotu, Sarva Sarvatranandatu, Durjana Sajjano Bhuyat, Sajjana Shantimapnuat, Shantamucchete Bandhebhyo, Muktaschanyan Vimochayet. May all be happy. May all enjoy good health. May all see happy events. May all be freed from miseries. May all be freed from dangers. May all realize what is good. May all be actuated by noble thoughts. May all rejoice everywhere. May the wicked become virtuous. May the virtuous attain tranquility. May the tranquil be free from bondages. May the freed makes other free. May the Supreme Deity, the presiding deity of all sacred activities, be satisfied. For he being pleased, the whole universe feels satisfied. Peace, peace, peace be unto you all.